kind of buy into that every now and then. Because he's good at it.
He's good at it.
Once we're ready. Okay, all right. We'll go ahead. So here's the direction that I've gotten so far. So just to make sure we're walking through this very methodically. So heavy emphasis or priority placed on the infrastructure side of the house. Same with sidewalk, which rolls into that. Going to take a time out on greenways for now in terms of pursuing a greenway master plan at this point, although that may be something in the future, because what I'm hearing is let's get a few wins and let's get a few things under our belt. Let's break some ground in a few places and get some momentum in the community on things we already have going. Is that okay? All right, town hall. So just revisiting that. So
can I go back
yes.
one? Nowhere did I see mentioned the additional capital that was implied from Kimley Horn, given what they found in the traffic study, that we might have to invest more money in Kensington. Would you just take that from the reserve
that will have to
fund?
come out of fund balance.
Okay, or fund,
Yeah.
yeah, fund.
So what we're seeing with Kensington Drive is we had a $1.8 million number. The engineering cost was was $150,000. With what they're finding with Kensington Drive, the good news is the bridge is in good shape. Because if that were a problem, that would change the whole. Dennis, you can chime in on this.
Closing.
Yeah. So just working within the confines of what we've got, we're going to be more than pushing the remaining budget. So of course, we won't know until it's said and done. You want to just update it just real briefly on Kensington Drive and what we've talked about with Steve Blakely so far and the kind of direction he was looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I can do part of that.
Yeah.
I probably need you to do part of that as well, because right now, Kim and Horn, they've looked at different alternatives. I mean, I think we've talked about a lot of them over time, and those could involve full rebuild, significant repair, light repair. I think their recommendations are a combination of light repair in certain areas, significant repairs, and maybe even rehabilitation work in certain portions of Kensington. Specifically, that involved reducing the severity of some curvature, rebuilding the full pavement section in certain parts, and actually lowering some of the vertical curves, creating some sight distance issues. So they produced 4 different alternatives and are looking for some direction from the town on which way we want to proceed. I think high level of if we proceed with any of the 4 alternatives, that there will be some period in time where Kensington Drive would need to be closed for the construction work to occur, and also there will be a period of time where that closure would overlap with schools. So I don't think that they can schedule out construction or it can occur completely independently of school operations.
And it gets to be, my engineering insight into this project is I can tell you when you get up to the Curtin Town Center, it gets to be a mess on what they're going to have to do. So anyway, that's a high level update on that. Okay. What I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I don't think anybody's locked into a location. I seem to get a fairly decent vibe about thinking about downtown for town hall. Looking at maybe some of the property that we have. The $5 million number, there's no engineering behind that. There's no, I mean, that's back of an envelope could be 10 million. Particularly if you're talking about buying property. And then you also have to think about furnishing the facility, all the infrastructure that goes on the inside of it. But as far as, we've got 4 years left on the current lease. We're maxed out at Town Hall. We are looking at sprucing up some space in the old Town Hall because we know we're going to be bringing some more staff on more than likely with the coming year's budget, depending on what gets approved. So we're going to need some space. that's kind of a relief valve to some degree.
Is it the old town hall or?
Oh, I'm sorry, the old town hall, old town hall.
Plain building.
Plain.
The old-
Well, it could be, it could be either, it could be, I don't know, it could be a combination of, some of that space will be used.
Okay.
It just depends on,
There's more to go into the old town hall than I think that
so we're having some people look at it now to give us an idea, so we'll keep you posted on that. All right, so priority. Again, we've got a few years, we've got some space we can utilize, we can make it work. We talked about, for whatever reason, the downtown park was just on a track that was ahead of any discussion about a town hall, but now we're talking about it. So now's the time to talk about it.
If I get a chance,
Go ahead.
I think critical to all this is probably the property, purchasing a piece of property. I think that's going to have to be done well ahead. I think property is going up daily. I don't think we need to sit very long on doing some research on what's available and where do we want to go. And I think we need to authorize a realtor to do some research for us. That's my opinion.
But before we do that, we need to do analysis of what our needs are, how large the building is, what footprint, what zoning would be required, because you can't just put it on a residential lot. So there's a lot to it that I think that we need to pre-plan. We need to know what the requirements of the square footage.
So we're doing some basic analysis now of what our growth projections are, so we'll have that. So we will know this is how big, this is staff-wise probably what we're looking at over the years to come. So I think we'll be able to back into.
In fact, to what Wendy said, we need to have input from
We're
the
getting,
staff.
we're
Because I don't want it to be another fiasco like.
So this is an example, of where we're doing that.
The staff's doing, we
Yeah,
can do
we're-
this internally with
No.
staff.
No.
I mean,
We're
you
gonna have
can
to-
tell us how many square feet you need, and how many parking spaces, right?
Well, it's gonna be a little more sophisticated than that. But we're having some preliminary work done on what our space needs are. Now, I've got an old report, if you look at it, we're gonna make sure, we're gonna take another look at our space needs. And then maybe compare that to what was done in the past and come up with some recommendations on it. So we'll have a really good idea of what our space needs are in the years to come.
You referred to the thing I gave you, that space needs?
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you saw that. It was the old hierarchical model that, depending upon where you sat in the organization, you got, that's much more square feet in office, and it's just, he had a Taj Mahal room, and
Well, Todd needed.
Todd needed how much square feet? I mean, it was
Marion needed 15,000 square feet or something, I think.
I mean, it was,
I hadn't seen that one.
Yeah.
oh yeah, it was,
Actually, I was exaggerating. I think it was 7,000 square
The
feet.
one that they had Marion at 150 square feet.
No, it was bigger
Oh,
than that.
oh.
So anyway, so that work's being done. So priority-wise, the clock's ticking. We've got time. What's your pleasure? How do you want to proceed? You know all the other priorities that are out there to some degree, and we don't. We will need to prioritize. Let me just throw it out there. Do you put town hall ahead of the downtown park?
No.
Okay. Could they run concurrently, or does it matter? I mean, let me ask that question another way. Should the downtown park just continue on the path that it's going down now?
Yes.
Okay, so keep on with the downtown park. All right, so let's get the head nods on that one. Okay, so town hall. The starting point recommendation was do some site analysis in this coming year. We've already started that, and obviously you would be heavily involved in what comes out of that. The public. Obviously it all comes down to dollars. So you just want us to continue working on bringing you some information and some options as a starting point?
I think the site's gonna be a compromise no matter what we do. I mean, we want it downtown. I don't think we all concur that Main Street's not an option, or at least not on downtown Main Street, maybe out at the end someplace. But we need to know what sites are gonna be available and the relative cost.
Okay.
Because that's gonna be the upfront cost that we're gonna have to put before we even start deciding on the details of the site.
What do you see in cost per acre downtown? I mean, does anybody know if anything's been sold down there? Is it, I mean, the residential around town is 75,000 an acre, it's got water and sewer.
But you can't build it on it. You're gonna need a bigger site than just a couple of residential.
Well, I'm just.
And can I just say, I'm sorry, again, my thoughts are just that staff be brought in on the process, not at the end, the tail end as was before, because I think that also affected the outcome, because then it became almost us against them. We were saying, well, this is gonna be needed, and this is what we see, and then there was offense taken because it had already been designed and laid out.
Right, so let me put it in perspective of what I think typically you would see. I'm sorry, Brenda, you were going to say something.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So staff involved. So you got administration, which is me, finance, HR, clerk's office, IT. So you got those functions. You've got, I would like for Parks and Rec to be in town hall. Over the longer term, as Parks and Rec grows, I think in most jurisdictions you would see Parks and Rec have its own facility. Police department already has its own facility. Public services, customary in local government, has its own facility, and that's a different story. So you have all the administrative functions in the downtown, in town hall, plus planning and development services. Although Dennis would want to run away from me and have his own place, but they also building inspections along with that. The engineering components that we're trying to build internally. We're never going to have the need, just generally speaking, for a tremendous amount of staff. We'll have needs for very highly skilled staff. We're not going to have water and sewer. We're not going to have natural gas. There are a lot of functions that some towns have, public housing, and we're probably not going to have those functions. We're going to be very limited to a large degree in the variety of departments and divisions that we're going to have a need for in terms of town hall. So that's good news. Your facility, what's the square footage? 26,000 square feet, and you've got 23 police officers? Or 27 police officers, okay. 27 in the department, okay. Just to give you kind of the background of what we're looking to house, is not a tremendous amount. You got to put a growth factor in there and look at 30 years out, but we're not talking about adding dozens and dozens of people every year like you might add in a large organization.
What we talked about yesterday, just in the engineering department, there's going to be 12
Potentially. That would be a high growth area.
The high growth
Yeah.
area, and then you're going to have a high growth area in Parks and Rec.
Well, so that's what I'm getting at. So I think you reach a point where you, more than likely, with the functions that Parks and Rec is going to have, will probably necessitate a separate facility. That's generally customary in most jurisdictions. When they reach a certain size, their operation just doesn't lend itself to being placed in town hall, depending on what kind of services are assigned.
I agree.
Yeah. So you're talking about administrative functions and development services to a large degree. Council chambers, meeting rooms, just the typical customary sorts of things. So I don't know I know Indian Trail is looking at an $8 million facility. I don't know how they got to that number, but we would need to go through a process and determine what our needs are, which is what we're doing. What our growth projections are, what our space needs are related to that. And then you get into the whole identifying property downtown or wherever it needs to be. I don't know what the previous conversations have been. I know at one point the town, Curtin Town Center was years back, and then it was the facility across from the old police department. They all, before that, I guess they had looked at the gravel lot downtown and done some conceptual work on what that would look like. I guess what we need to avoid is, a whole lot of, I think we need to gel around a certain concept and idea. So what sorts of things are kind of deal breakers for you related to a town hall, based on just what you know coming into it, what you've seen, the discussions having been in the past? What are some must-haves from your perspective?
Have adequate parking at the same site.
Okay.
Because that's what was the problem with the downtown site. They were gonna put a satellite behind it,
That's what
the
you're getting
Dead
at.
and Price building, and you're gonna have to walk from there to the downtown site. The other thing is, you need to be able to house it all and not share it with nobody else. I don't think it should be.
As far as retail uses mixed in?
I don't think
Okay.
it should be in a retail use situation. I don't think it should be on Main Street. Because I think Main Street, we should try to keep it boutique retail.
All right, so you've thrown out two things, so parking, adequate parking, and no shared use as far as retail. What do you agree with that? You disagree with that? Are you open to, okay, if folks have to walk, or yeah, maybe if we can get some retail in there, or are those just absolutely, that's probably not a good idea?
Well, if you're downtown, I would think that the downtown parking study could kind of begin to highlight maybe some different options. Personally, I stay open at this point in time
Okay.
because of the journey we've been on.
Right. Okay. But ideally, I would agree, I mean, the parking,
Yeah.
if you're gonna come to town hall, you gotta walk 3 blocks to get there.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
but downtown parking is not,
I could see a shared use with adjacent to a park and make it a
Okay.
community center town hall. I could see that vision, but I cannot see it as being a pub downstairs and town hall upstairs. You know, it just, I don't see that.
Okay.
It just doesn't.
Okay.
Okay,
It is
I just-
located downtown.
Draft house. I mean,
It
it
has
just
parking
doesn't tie
for
together.
his fun fact. That parking is also available on weekends
Yeah,
and for
absolutely.
functions.
Yeah.
So, yes, I mean, that's when what you want to
Yeah.
do. The off-peak can be used by everybody
okay.
else.
All right.
May I ask what, for staff's sake, what you consider downtown? I mean, do
Yeah.
you mean just along Main Street?
The
That's
small
what those
town
people
area
say,
plan.
Main Street, Main Street, South Main.
The small town area plan is what I consider downtown. Everything from Blythe Mill Road to basically the gas station on 75 to the gas station on Howie's or whatever they call it. Howie's next to
Yeah.
David G. Barnes. And back as far as the park, the Horton property. That's what I consider downtown now. Everybody else,
So that's like pretty much a half-mile radius from,
yeah, pretty much the original town,
okay.
a half a mile radius.
When people, for the last 25 years, when people say downtown, they mean the 2 main streets, the railroad tracks.
Okay.
Anything else is going out of town.
Okay. All right, so other things that just kind of, because I know the whole retail thing was a big point of, was a big conversation piece in the last, going back a few years when this topic came up, because I
Well,
looked at
they
some
were gonna
minutes.
fund part of it, they
Yeah.
thought, because they're gonna get a bunch of money for selling retail rental space. I didn't think that would actually work.
So, okay, let me ask you this, something new versus something renovated?
I
If
think
it has
it's-
character, renovation would be great.
I don't think you have anything big enough you can renovate that's big enough. But that doesn't preclude, I mean, take a wild idea, take the Nimitz Price building and add to it. You know, maybe get rid of the little shop next to it that's just no architectural significance at all. But that's pretty expensive too. So-
But then you have parking. What is your per car per parking?
Well, there's no in the downtown.
Yeah, there's not in the downtown area.
There's no limit, there's no
Minimum required.
There's no minimum.
Say.
there's a maximum.
Could you put town hall on the parking deck?
Yes, you could pay for it. But that's.
Instead of using retail, park's hard there.
John, you're awful quiet.
Morganton.
What's
Sorry,
your,
just taking a nap.
okay.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on or downtown versus somewhere else and mixed uses in it, parking, new versus old?
I think you need to stay away from mixed uses. That was a bad idea from the start. It was a Band-Aid. The idea of parking is very.
Was that a funding kind of mechanism? That was the whole, okay.
To make it
Right.
sound
I wasn't sure what
advertising.
Okay.
Yeah. It covers companies.
We were gonna get into trouble with the local government. too.
Yeah, there's limits on what you can do there. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
and then, but to Paul's point, parking is very critical. And as you identify a site, part of the cost feasibility, what do you do with parking? Do you have to have below-grade parking? Do you have to have a parking deck? Do you have to have, those are considerations. Depends on the site.
I'm open.
Okay.
to-
You wanna sell your house?
Make us a good
Let's
offer.
negotiate.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
3/4 of an acre downtown.
Good parking.
We also
Come
look
more,
at
we got it.
what our infrastructure, what we needs
Yeah.
are of a building, because that's one of the biggest holdbacks of the downtown plan was, we were gonna have to put $1 million in the dirt to make it work,
For power.
just for power and water and sewer.
Oh, just on that corner?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we would have to not rebuild only that block, but the one adjacent to it, to
Yeah.
the Niven Price building.
One problem is that the sewer system was designed for the land application. It only takes the liquor off of the septic tanks that are there. And the pipes are not big enough, so we have to replace all the downtown pipes if we want to get rid of the septic tanks.
Okay.
Put a restaurant in there on a septic tank is impossible.
Or you could create it for the pump station.
I'm open, I mean, last year when we were up at, it'd be interesting if they take you, when you guys are down at the Main Street Conference, if they go to Goldsboro, what they're in. Morganton was in a building and they had the open office environment and just office space where you could go in, and it was an older building. Worked great, the town manager who we were meeting with was just wide open and shared how successful that works for them because it promoted more teamwork. Was up, took a class up in Huntersville, and they took an old, I don't know if it was an old school, it's an old building, and they refurbed it, rehabbed it, and pretty much all open office, and then they used the downstairs for classrooms and stuff like that, where they actually brought in more of the education into the School of Government education for the area in, and then got their regional partnerships going through that effort. So I'm anxious to hear what you guys come up with in terms of need and then what's available.
The only existing facility that would fit that in Waxhaw is the mill, and that's already off the table right now.
Or the Providence Road School.
Yeah,
That's on the other one.
If the county
Or
would give it up, the
if
South
you're gonna
Providence.
go outside of town to the site that we looked at before.
They also
Across the
looked
parking lot from the police department.
The original town hall, that wasn't 10 million, that got up to 13 million. And it was an election year, and people started screaming.
That was the one they were proposing downtown.
Was that not when they were going to put the library with it?
Not on the corner.
I remember the library and town hall was together at one time,
So
6 years ago.
your town hall should, to some degree, make a statement. I mean, doesn't have to, but it could.
You make a statement in 2 ways.
But it's office space.
Yeah, it is office, at the end of the day, it's
That's
office
right.
space. Yeah,
But you can make it be grandiose and everybody
Yeah.
wants to be mad at you. Or you can make a statement and it can be tasteful without being imposing, you know.
I was looking at Wesley Chapel's town hall. Is it Wesley Chapel? They got a pretty nice town hall.
That's an old school.
Is that an old school?
That's part of the old.
Renovated?
That was the,
No.
that's the Mineral Springs School.
Mineral Springs is,
Oh,
little
Miss
school.
Wesley Chapel.
Yeah,
I was thinking about
Wesley
Mineral
Chapel.
Springs. Mineral Springs is.
Yeah, that's how old Andrew got the school.
Anyway,
But they have problems.
This is just off the wild card. Is the Union County schools using the entire South Providence school?
Yes.
Yes.
I was gonna say, is it possible we could rent part of it? That's not a possibility.
No,
At
they use
this point.
everything over there.
We've talked, Warren and I meet monthly with our board, their board representative. And we brought it up, and I think they started loading kids in as soon as we brought it up. But
There's like 20 school buses there.
yeah,
More
next
than
day.
You know, you know the story about Cuthbertson, they were there was only filling half the
Oh, yeah.
school, so they wanted to move South Providence over there.
Oh, yeah.
They did. They put it in the one wing in the middle school, and it worked fine.
Until the parents started screaming louder.
Mr. Hunt, you're thinking, well, you're,
No, I'm still processing, trying to
Okay.
figure out what's what.
all right, so we will continue down the road of bringing something back for y'all to chew on. But I think I've got some good, you're really, what I'm hearing is, yeah, there are a few things you'd like to see, but you're not necessarily locked into anything in particular. So which brings us to, let's take the second highest ticket item on the list was the park. So just to reiterate, just keep down the path that we're currently heading into the park, correct? Okay. All right, and the last one is the public services facility. Now, Todd's operation, they're more than like, we're never gonna have water and sewer, so you're not gonna have the big,
How word that?
you're not gonna have the big equipment and the big yard that you would see in a lot of cities that would require a lot of space for that type of equipment. I mean, basically your operation is maintenance related
Right.
for what we have. You do have some heavy equipment down there. You know, the current facility, you've got a shed.
Right.
So you would need
And
potentially.
we got a mechanic shop.
A mechanic
We
shop,
take care of all the
right.
police cars
Right.
and town vehicles.
And then Marion, and you've got some office space, and that would, my guess is over time, there would need to be some room to grow. And so I'm just talking generally here.
Yeah.
But, so, I don't know that, I'm not, and we're having some more work done on Todd's side too, but I don't know that we're talking about millions of dollars in a facility to house and accommodate that sort of thing, even thinking about, their growth isn't gonna be buildings as much as it's gonna be space in terms of acreage.
So, yeah.
Um,
And it's according to what we do with stormwater,
Yeah.
what, putting in pipe, stuff like that,
Right.
driveways.
So and I think there's some things we can't talk about that you are familiar with that we're still working on. So that works underway.
Priority wise, I would put the public services above the town hall.
You would? Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So,
Agree. It's a good point, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we need to get the town hall underway, the discussion,
yeah.
but we don't have to purchase the land or any other things right away. We need to start doing slight selection, but I think public services should be done prior to the town hall.
Yeah, their needs are critical in terms of their space.
Do you feel like you need to have that done before the next leaf season?
We'll definitely need
Okay,
that.
okay, so that
We'll
kind of puts the
I don't know
priority
if it'll be
there.
their future home, but
Because I think we're just about done
Yeah.
where we putting them.
yeah, y'all are about done. Mount Todd.
Because I think they're ready to sell that property.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right there.
Yeah, there's for sale signs popping up everywhere.
Well, and so he's got two different things. So he's got a space needs in terms of a composting facility. So, and then he's got, which could go at a public services facility or could be somewhere separate. So there's actually a couple of different options for your quandary that we're in there. So, all right. So financing, what you're going to see coming forward related to the, but we'll develop the budget to a large degree about a lot of what we have talked about here. Again, there will be more conversations along the way. We're just not going to surprise everybody with, with what the final, particularly on the capital side, is going to look like. And we'll also have more opportunities to talk about bond referendum versus pay-as-you-go, which one of my things that I will always recommend is to the degree possible, every year we need to increase the amount of money that we're setting aside for future capital projects and have that money increasing. I mean, as long as we're in a growth mode, the prudent thing to do is set some of that growth aside for future capital. So that will give us a funding source for a lot of the things that would otherwise require a property tax rate increase where we just wouldn't be able to do.
So would that be a budgeted item?
Yes.
Or would it be a rollover or whatever
It would
was
be.
left over from the general fund against the budget?
It's a
for the
budgeted item.
Previous year?
So that's a great point. So you'll have two things going on. So you'll have, as our revenues increase, and let's say our expenditures or our revenues always exceed budget, and our expenditures always come in under. That's the ideal scenario. So we're always putting money ideally into fund balance. So you've got a pot of money over here that you can fund some capital. And in addition to that, you've got some capital money you're also designating for a capital reserve for other projects. So you really got two, as your fund balance grows and is healthy, you can tap into it. You can also tap into what you're setting aside on an annual basis for the capital reserve. And then for the major projects where you don't have the cash available, then you talk about financing. That's the ideal scenario to be, or financing through a bank or a bond referendum. What am I missing on the 5-year? I've got the direction that I need to be able to start pulling some of this stuff together. What am I missing? I think we talked about a bond referendum. I think realistically we would miss the window to do it right for this coming fall. So you would be looking at the next fall if you wanted to do, if we got into the greenways.
I would like to learn a little bit more about bond referendums.
All right,
To be
so
truth with you, I would like to have that.
would you like me to I know the perfect person to get down here out of Charlotte. He's a bond attorney with Parker Poe, and he did the one in Hickory. He's a good guy. He's got it. He can talk in terms that everybody can understand, even I can understand. So, as opposed to Chaplin. So,
And how,
that was supposed to be funny, but nobody's laughing.
what are the restrictions to a bond
Yeah.
referendum?
What's that?
And what restrictions goes to it?
Right, he'll lay all that out. He'll lay all that out.
I thought it was factual. Question, so you took 150 million down to 20?
Yeah.
Okay. In that 150 million though, there are some things that are not on this
You're
list.
exactly, that's a great point.
So what happened, so we're not gonna touch any of that
Well,
stuff?
no,
And
no.
how do we set that expectation?
Well, it gets to what we were talking about yesterday. We can't do everything.
Right.
And really, to some degree, we can't even talk about everything. There's just so much. A lot of it, I don't think, a lot of the numbers that I saw in 150 million, just to be quite honest, were inflated. Of course, you can argue some of my numbers weren't inflated enough. There were some projects in there that I had no idea what they were even talking about, I had never heard of before. But it came from somewhere. There was a mall project, a $4 million mall. I don't know if that was a downtown mall.
Oh, that's
or-
Main Street.
That's the gravel lot circling around. They had
Okay.
captured that as
Okay.
a mall concept.
Okay, well, there was 4 million, I mean, there were a number of different things like that. I talked about the implementation of the pedestrian plan. That was, I think, extremely inflated. I can tell you on this list, there's nothing in there for Highway 16. I think eventually the town needs to start thinking about setting some money aside for Highway 16, because when the state does improve or widen Highway 16, they're not going to do it to the aesthetic standard that we would expect, so that's
Right.
going to be on us.
Yep.
So we need to think about, we got a little bit of time on that, but that'll be a pretty big ticket to do it right, because they're just going to come in and do the bare bones. Waxhaw Parkway, there's nothing in there for Waxhaw Parkway. Those are all separate items.
All the nice to haves in the neighborhood plans.
Yes, a lot of there were, thank you, there were a number of different parks that I didn't include that were in the, if we could just focus on what Natalie identified that we've got going on right now for the next 3 years, I think there's plenty of work. And it gets back to the focus,
I'm
Yeah,
fine
well,
with that,
yeah,
but I think as we set expectation, we need to be aware of what maybe
Absolutely.
caviar.
Well, some people would be expecting some things that they won't see.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
I assume that you're gonna kind of give the highlights of this at the next board meeting in your manager's report, so that the general public or the people that actually show interest in the town would actually see this in front of them, because they might not watch this video.
Well, so this needs to be fine-tuned
Correct.
before I can roll it out.
Okay.
So, but we will reach a point where absolutely, we will roll all this out as part of the
So they
budget
know
development.
that we can't
Yeah,
afford everything.
yeah.
Because they think we got giant pockets.
These are great, these
I
are good.
think that's a good point, Paul, but I also think that we gotta give him some air cover. And this can't just be Warren saying, hey, I'm chopping 130 of the 20 million. Not that you're saying that, not that you're saying that. We gotta give him air cover on this and say, this is the appetite that this leadership team really thinks we
I
can.
think we should start easing into it this next coming meeting somehow. Either the board, you, me, somebody kind of saying that we've discussed a lot of our capital needs. We had over $150 million worth of capital needs over the next 10 years or whatever. And we will down to 40 million, and we're still saying, we don't think we really can afford that on a $10 million budget. I mean, nobody realized that we're only a $10 million budget. Nobody does, except for 8 people in the town besides the commissioners and this board. Really, I mean, nobody realizes that. They all think we're a $100 million budget.
Yeah, I completely agree with your point. We gotta get the message out there.
We just have to start easing into it. We have to put the brakes on slowly. Does that make
Maybe
sense?
an update on what we covered at the retreat from, from
Yeah.
the board.
Yeah.
But big picture here, I know we've in the yesterday and today, we focused on a lot of what might feel like negative. There is a whole, I would much rather be talking about how are we gonna fund these new things that we want versus, okay, we've got all this stuff that we're funding now, our budget's so bad, we're gonna have to go and close all the stuff that we do, which being in an environment where we're talking about adding things, and it's just, we want to add these things, we have the capacity to some degree to add many of these things, how are we going to do it, when are we going to do it? That's a lot better position to be in than, well, we got to close 2 libraries and 2 swimming pools, and, I mean, yeah. So it may feel like, and it is challenging, but it's a tremendous opportunity too, even with what Dennis went over yesterday. I mean, there's a tremendous opportunity to get this right, and then boom, moving forward, we're off and running. And it's just a matter of going up and cleaning up some things, that maybe need addressed.
So when Chaplin figures out how we take on the blue roads, is that in here or?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Yeah. So
that's in that.
So what he's referring to is yesterday, we looked at Barrington. The roads are in horrible shape. They put the little speed bumps in. So we're going to reach a point, the board is going to reach a point where you're going to say, okay, we're either going to take these things over or we're not. And if you say yes, the idea is you're going to have a little pot of money where you can go do some retrofits and some work to get them up to a certain standard. And then, but this also plays to other parts of town that don't have curb and gutter and storm drain systems in. We looked at one that, where the 4 homes flood in Hillcrest. You have some money to tap into to go do some fixes down there and that sort of thing. Of course, if we get a stormwater fund set up and an associated fee, if you were to go that route, then there's a funding mechanism for, but some of these things are probably more immediate.
How's like the planning strip out?
That would ultimately come out of here too. Then it's a matter of prioritizing all the work that needs, and then we talked about, another example might be making that connection from the Waxhaw Parkway on the west side at Harrison Park to Utah to up on Waxhaw Marvin. You'd have a little pot of money to make that, it's more complicated than what I'm making it out to be, but because it's a property acquisition. But it gives you a pot of money to go fix some things that are in the ground and address some things that should have been addressed or have not been addressed in the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at, and I won't beat a dead horse, but 1,000 trees in the planting strip. And so Dennis and Todd come back and say, hey, the best thing we can do is fix it now. Would you come back to us or try to take it out?
We would come back with a recommendation for you all, or a couple of recommendations, and then we would say, this is how much it's going to cost, and this is where the money's going to come from. But the idea is that it would come out of, that may be the only project you do that year out of this, but you get the issue fixed.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm just, why 3 pennies? Why 450,000? I mean, it could be less than. I need to sit down with Dennis and Todd, some others, really fine tune that. But it just kind of gives you an idea that there will be more needs there than we will have money for. to cover, so that's
You're
not.
not
gonna be
only
an issue.
taking the tree out, but you also don't have to fix the sidewalk that's already built.
And that's assuming you have taken ownership of the road that the trees, I
Yeah.
mean, because what's happening is we don't own these roads, and the trees every year that we don't own them continue to mature,
Right, and getting worse and worse.
and then it'll get more and more expensive the day that we are asked to take the streets over. And if we say, well, we're not taking those streets over, then you got citizens coming up, well, I'll pay my taxes, I see them at the podium now, I'm paying my taxes, like everybody else, you need to come take my roads over. It's not my fault that you allowed them to put, I mean, I can just see
And some of that
kind of
starts
position.
right now.
Yeah, we're starting to see a little bit of that. So we're trying to get as ahead of it as we can. And you saw, if you paid attention yesterday, where some of those sidewalks are already starting to buckle.
Right.
And those trees aren't nearly as big as they're gonna be.
We have some that's already getting into the curb and into the asphalt. So it's,
Again, more opportunities than problems. That's just, there'll be an opportunity somewhere along the line in there.
Well, the good news is you got the budget, everything, so the financial system set up so we can track it
Yes.
and show year on year, which is something we didn't have either in the past.
Yeah, as the years go by, we will know exactly how much money we are spending for certain services that we're providing. And again, it's gonna take a couple of years to really smooth that out, because it's a little bit of a guessing game the first year or so.
How much did you spend for lunch?
I don't see lunch, I don't know.
There.
Well,
There.
there you go. So lunch, y'all wanna start back at 1? Does that work? Or let me ask you, any other questions, comments? I know we went through $20 million worth of stuff, but a lot of it was just recurring in a pretty short amount of time. Does everybody, any comments, complaints, cuss words? Anything? I always ask for those.
These are good discussions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I guess we'll break for lunch, and what's the directions on that?
Just go over to the kitchen and
We're going to go through some legislative stuff on a statewide level, and then talk about legislative priorities on a local level, as well as political engagement with those around us and with our state legislators and that sort of thing. And then what we'd like to wrap up with is just reviewing your vision, mission, values, strategic initiatives, to see if it's aligned with what you, and realizing we may have to come back with another session and really fine tune that, but to walk through those to see if they really reflect, after what you've heard the last 2 days, who we are and where we're going. So at the North Carolina City County Managers Conference in Research Triangle Park last week, every year they do I plagiarized this, every year they do a legislative update, and the league comes in, the League of Municipalities. Who's familiar, the league, North Carolina League of Municipalities? Okay, well, just for those that are, they've been around since 1908, and they were founded to promote sound and civic management. So they've been around a long time working on behalf of the cities and towns. The North Carolina County Commissioners Association does the same thing on the county side. So this is just the municipal side. Let me go through all this stuff. Yeah, they were created over 100 years ago. It's a voluntary federation of 540 cities, towns, and villages. So we are members of the league. We're one of 540 members around the state. They are our political advocate or legislative advocate, particularly in Raleigh, to some degree on the federal level, but they really focus on state government. And that's been important here of late. The legislature has not been friendly to towns and cities the last few years. So that they've been at our side through all of this. So there's the leadership, just so you'll know. There's the mayor of Elkin. The mayor is the league president. The mayor of Zebulon is the first vice president, and then the mayor of Jacksonville is the second vice president. They've got a board member. They went through all that. I won't bore you with that. We've got a number of affiliates. We're the North Carolina City County Management Association, which I'm a member of, is an affiliate of this group. They support our group. They support the Finance Officers Association, the Budget Officers Association, the Clerk's Office. So they support a lot of the professional organizations around the state that are involved in local government. Let's see. Their key areas that they focus on is advocacy of state and federal issues that are important to local governments. And they also have an insurance program. They do training. Many of y'all have been to the training. They provide technical assistance, legal services, and communications for local governments. They have a vision for 2030. Their core vision, a piece of it, is to achieve more control over revenues, structure, and function amongst local governments. So revenue control at a local level is something very important. We talked about the only form of revenue that you have 100% control over is the property tax. And just so you'll know, not that we would ever get there, but the property tax can only be increased to $1.50. I say, oh, I know, yeah, only increased to $1.50. There are some counties around the state that are over $1. The Waxhaw is at 36 cents. But that's the one source of revenue. They want to diversify, or they want to broaden our ability to raise sales tax and other sorts of taxes to lessen the burden on the property tax. The property tax is extremely unpopular around the state. Let's see. Good news for local government. So they did a poll. The league commissioned a poll. Looks like to some degree what we're talking about doing, only ours will be more targeted. They had 600 likely general election voters that participated in the survey. It was done by Matheny and Associates out of D.C. And the results came back that North Carolinians are generally happy with the direction of local government. You'll see in a minute that they're not real happy about the direction of state government. But on the local level, they were happy. They're seeing their local economies improve. They believe in helping small business, and that should be a cornerstone of the government-directed economic development efforts. And they want authority. They want municipalities. Within this poll, it came out that they would like to see municipalities have more authority to make these sorts of things happen in more decision-making capacity. So here's how within the 600 sample group of folks that they polled and surveyed, they felt like the state of North Carolina, 40% of them thought it was on the right track, 52% thought the state was on the wrong track, 8% didn't know. So there's some dissatisfaction out there right now with the state government. On the direction of their individual city or town, 60% thought that their city or town was on the right track. That's significant get 60% of anybody to agree, and 34% thought that their city or town was on the wrong track. So that was that on the state side versus that on the local side. And when you think about the degree to which bond referendums pass in North Carolina is pretty high. Generally, if a bond referendum passes at a local level, it tells you three things. Number one, the voters like the projects that they saw, they are willing to pay for them, and they trust you, the governing body, to get it done. Those are the three. So, generally speaking, bond referendums in North Carolina do pass more often than they fail because of those three things. This is the job rating of the town government. This would be like me and you and staff. City or town government job rating, how well they think we are doing the job. This is across the state. Almost 70% approve of the job that their city councils and staff in their towns do. That's amazing. They were rolling these results out, and the group that did the survey couldn't believe it. But it's a statistically valid sample. But those are good numbers. It broke down the demographics of the group that they surveyed. It was Republicans, Democrats, rural, urban. It was East North Carolina, Western North Carolina in the middle. It was really spread out. It wasn't hitting any particular of the states stronger. But that's a good number. The quality of life, 73% of the folks that live in the town that they live in feel like they had an excellent or good quality of life. They felt like 78% felt like they were very satisfied with the services and amenities that their town provides. That would be an interesting question to ask. And actually, we talk about, to a large degree, we're a startup, just getting in the service provision. Although we got police, pick the trash up, and solid waste collection and leaves and that sort of thing. But getting into the park side of the house, we're really just getting involved in those things. But it would be interesting to see, what the opinion was of folks in Waxhaw on the quality of the services they receive. This is some other stuff. Let's see, 86% felt like city and local government should have more control versus, say, only 13% thought the state should have more local control. So that's, people recognize that goes back to folks generally trust their local elected officials. They're the folks that you are closest to the public. Obviously, when you get to Raleigh and DC, you get further and further away, and that's good for local government in North Carolina. And this is the breakdown. You can see. I can provide this for you if you want it. Home rules, more local. This again, more local government authority. 75% supported having home rules for local governments. So that's good news, right? So now we know what the state of North Carolina has been doing the last few years in trying to water down and take away authority from local governments. If you know the water systems situation in Asheville, the Charlotte, or the airport, Charlotte Douglas Airport in Charlotte was a big topic, trying to take the control away from the airport, away from the local government. Dorothea Dix Hospital in Raleigh was another one that they got involved in, with the city of Raleigh and what they were going to pay for that facility to. Anyway, so since I've been in local government, that has not been the case. The state is pretty much, obviously the state creates local governments and created us, but they have never gotten down into our business like they have. We all know what they've done with the annexation law. That causes severe problems. I mean, you can speak to those firsthand. Just right up the road here, we're trying to work a deal on something that years ago, you could have had the tool in your toolbox to annex them involuntarily. Now what happened was there were cities around the state that abused that. And what happened was the state pushed back and said, you just can't do that anymore at all. But a good compromise would have been something in between. Because the annexation law, I would have to admit, around the state was being abused before the state legislature came in and changed it altogether. But anyway, let's see. We'll go flip through some of this stuff. Okay, advocacy update. So there's the advocacy folks that work, the general counsel, the legislative council for the league. Right now, looking at, they always go, I mean, they're I'm not in the political business, but they're in the political business, so I'm just going to report what they're saying. They say right now that Attorney General Cooper has a fundraising edge, but it's still over Governor McCrory at this point, but it's too close to call. And this is important to us from the perspective of who is more sympathetic, not whether you're Republican or Democrat, but who might be more sympathetic to local government. Although I will say that Pat McCrory coming from Charlotte, I mean, he's got some folks in the legislature that aren't sympathetic to local government, but I think he generally is. I mean, he's been there and done that, so he knows how all that works. But anyway, so the Democrats think that North Carolina is the best shot to take over a governor's seat in the upcoming election. But who knows? We'll see. But on the House, on the legislative races, there are 170 total seats up, and there's 22 retirements. So there's going to be a big churn going on in the House and the Senate coming up this coming year. So there's going to be definitely some turnover. And this is interesting. 43% of all the races are decided before the short session starts. With all the redistricting that went on, you pretty much know going in which ones are Republican and which ones are Democrat. There's so half of those they can pretty much already identify, then the other 50% are up for grabs. So here's where we get into some of the bond issue stuff. So North Carolina, the Connect North Carolina bond that the governor's proposed will come out for vote on March 15th. It's a $2 billion bond. One of the university projects will get a lot of it. Community colleges, other state buildings, parks, water and sewer. On the water and sewer side of it, there's $310 million that are going to be set aside. It's not grant money, it's loan money. And we need to talk to Union County about if they have any plans to apply for any of this low interest loan money for potentially some of the projects in Waxhaw. Because that's a new pot of money, a low interest loan. Again, it's not grant, but it's low interest loan money that will be available in the next year or so, if this is approved, to do some water and sewer projects around the county. So we need to talk to Ed Mashecki and make sure or just have an understanding of what their plans are related to that.
And at the commissioner level, they had no idea whether or not the county was even going to participate in that.
Okay.
Nothing had been communicated at all.
Well, I hope they do.
Yeah.
But we're going.
I pushed.
Yeah, good. Because that could be, I mean, that's a huge pot of money. Of course, it goes all across the state, but I think Union County specifically doesn't get a whole lot. Maybe a little bit for the community college, or I can't remember
Yeah,
what
it
was
was
on the list.
very little, just a little bit for
Yeah,
SBC.
there was nothing in this area.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's coming up. So here's what the governor has said. He doesn't want any controversial items coming up in the short session. That's good news for us, so that they can't do any more damage than what's already been done, because he doesn't want anything to get mangled up to hurt the bond chances. So there won't be much activity in the short session. Let's see. Legislative update. This is interesting. Let's see. The league is really pushing, saying that it's our job. We need to think about this when we go to talk to our legislators, whether it be at town hall day or somewhere else. But make the case for more revenue options and flexibility. Now, when I went through the capital stuff, fund balance really isn't a revenue; it's a pot of money. And you got property tax. Well, you can finance, but it still comes back. Property tax is really the only source of revenue we have control over. We would like to see more options. So anyway, they talked about another 1/4 cent sales tax. That's a tax that everybody pays versus just property owners.
Yeah, so I'm going to shoot everybody the soft copy of the league's goals. We as a town have not taken the time to focus on what's important to us. So municipal revenue options, there's 37 things in here. Most of the towns take the time and have a letter sent up prior to town hall day, and then we all go up on town hall day, get really focused on what's important to Waxhaw. In addition to some of the revenue options, there's things like legislation to reestablish authority for city-initiated annexation of donor holes. Something that's hurting us a lot.
That would be, yeah.
But the point, we collectively need to decide where do we want to drive the 37 to what are the 6-8 important ones. And as importantly, what Paul was explaining to me was go up not just with a letter, but be able to show, explain, and offer, and really talk it through with them. So we got a lot of work to have you direct staff to get us some information and get this in a presentation format. But they purposely moved town hall day to the end of towards the end of the session, June 8th. It's not right in the middle, smack dab in the middle when they don't have time to talk to us. I'd encourage you to mark it on your calendars now. I'll get this out to you, and then we'll start having a dialogue at the board meeting as to where we're going to drive focus and what information we need to direct you on to get.
Perfect. That's great. We need to make sure we're all on the same page and sending the same message up to Raleigh. The state did expand the sales tax base this past year. It's effective March 1st. You'll start seeing the revenue come in July 1st. I think you're going to see, based on the projections that the league did for us, with all that the legislature did, we should see about a $90,000 increase in sales tax revenue, which is good, over the course of a year, related to them broadening the base. So, and you had mentioned that they were going to come back.
Yeah, keep it as is this year, but they're still a little irritant as to.
They want to mess with. They want
to mess with it
some more.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's probably next year after the election. But again, to the level that we want to take that on and continue to talk about this, we don't need change. We need to decide that as we look at this and then get ready for that.
And if you remember, the big thing and what they had originally proposed was really good for us and really bad for Mecklenburg County.
Right.
But Wake County was getting hammered, Buncombe County, so what they came up with was kind of a little bit of a compromise, but if they go back to wanting to address that issue again, I mean, again, there's winners and losers everywhere. I mean, we could be a winner on that, but one of the things.
It'd be a winner, but we were gonna have to do a census to figure out how we could win.
And one of the things the league says is, that maybe one of their strategies is to pit people, ourselves against pit Union County folks against Mecklenburg County. We need to guard against being pitted against one another to some degree. But anyway. Revenue, some of the legislative committee topics. Let's see, internet sales tax collection's a big one. All this environmental stuff, they continue to a large degree, make things easier for the development community, and that has been a common theme, so that will continue. They've changed some of the PAL bill distribution. They've talked about the different tiers, some of this stuff. Okay, PAL bill changes. So they've changed the PAL bill distribution. I don't think it's going to impact our allocation very much. There used to be a link between the gas tax revenues and PAL bill funds. As gas tax revenues went up, PAL bill revenues went up. As the gas tax revenues declined, they went down. Now it's going to be more of a steady trajectory. Just interestingly, they gave this. Our PAL bill money, that's the money we get for road maintenance, but you also do sidewalks. We talked about using some of that for the downtown project. Overwhelmingly, almost 70% of all the PAL bill money that cities and towns receive go into street construction and street maintenance. And then you get other street expenditures. Could be leaf removal is one, off the streets is one that qualifies for PAL bill. And then you get a smaller sliver that is eligible with bikeways, greenways, and sidewalks, which is one of the things we're talking about using some of that money for downtown. But anyway, we'll work through all that. And again, this is another way of looking at it. Again, overwhelmingly, most of the money goes to street resurfacing, but you can use it for a variety of different things. Let's see, they want to potential legislative committee studies. State stormwater laws. My guess is they are not getting together to talk about how they can strengthen state stormwater laws. I'm going to go out on a limb. What do you think? That was, okay. We're throwing some red meat out there. Nobody's jumping on it. So. All right. Let's see. So here's some potential bills. Billboards is always, and again, they're not talking about doing away with billboards. They're talking about how can we allow more billboards to go up. Pension reform, that's the state pension. There's a Firefighter Disease Presumption Act that's out there. That's actually, if a firefighter retires, I won't get this exactly right, but if a firefighter retires from service and then gets lung cancer, 10 years down the road, they can come back and tap into, I guess it'd be workers' comp or some sort of funding, because the presumption is they got that from their profession. So that's an interesting one that's kind of bubbling out there. We all know about I-77, and this is one they continue to. Huntersville-Davidson aesthetic ordinances. They're trying to tinker with the degree to which Huntersville and Davidson can regulate the look of something. So, and I don't know the specifics on that, but generally that's what that one's about. Again, they are.
For the look, or?
No, they are. I'm gonna go.
Take control away.
Yeah, take control away from the towns.
They have a lot of control, I think.
Yeah, they are.
You can't add any more to it.
Yeah. Now they may be ones that are kind of. It might be an example that they've gone way over the edge too far, but or at least in the legislature's eyes. But yeah, that would be one that would take away authority. Division of Environmental Quality Guidance, only delegated programs must submit. Let's see. All right, so they're saying, let me get this right. Okay, so they want cities and counties, I guess, to submit their stormwater programs and plans for regulator oversight to make sure that they don't exceed what the state requires. So there's another example. They don't want you going beyond, and I don't know how Charlotte's going to shake out in that. But anyway, so we'll see. They don't want anybody to go beyond having requirements beyond what the state's requirements are. And again, that's another area on the environmental side that they're getting into. That's just I kind of breezed through that pretty quickly. But any questions or comments? The bottom line there's not going to be a whole lot of activity coming up. We know what they've done in the past, and we know what the league's goals are moving forward. But for this coming, particularly this short session over the next 6 months or so, there's not going to be a whole lot of activity. All of the attention is going to be placed on the bond referendum.
Bond referendum and reinforcement from a local level, what we need. The comment that they made to me and asked our help on, when you look at these goals and you look at the members, the committees, et cetera, there's one person from Union County, and that's it, that's participating at the league level. So when we don't get money and stuff, there's no one up there lobbying for us because we're not expressing ourselves. So to me, it's a great opportunity for us to at least get it down on paper. This is the stuff that's important. This is what we're going to take forward to town hall day. All of us go up and really get it out in front of them.
Well, I was going to say, just in establishing the board's legislative priorities and strategies. I mean, that's something that we need to talk about. What are your priorities related to that? What are your goals related to that? And that could be anything from engaging folks around us, which is actually one of our goals for the coming year, to our state and federal representatives.
Well, they certainly give us access. To get the ball rolling with the county, Warren has reached out to Cindy Cotto, asked to wait till after the appointment of the new chair, I think is what she said. But we're going to go, Warren and I are going to go up to meet with Chairman Rushing and Cindy Cotto, explain what's going on here, ask them, how can we be a better partner? How can we get each of our commissioners aligned to your commissioners, et cetera, and be it Parks and Rec or wherever we want to focus. We hope to get that scheduled within 30 to 45 days based upon schedules and bring that back so we can get their recommendation as to how to better participate with the county. They were very candid. Richard Helms was very candid. Western Union County doesn't embrace the county very well. And the fact that we're willing to sit down with the chair and the county manager, probably a first for this side of the county. That's why I made the comment yesterday, John, that I'm not sure we're getting too well represented at the county level. They just flat out don't have an idea what we need, want, where we want to partner, and things like that. But my intent is to ask them how all of us can participate in that. I don't view that as just singularly my role or Warren directly with Michelle and Cindy. We all have to participate in our specialty areas or preference areas along the way. And we plan to ask them that question and see how they react to that. It was interesting on that whole I-77. It's the first time, and all of the municipalities said it's the first time the county ever asked for input. Now, they never took it, but that's a different problem. But it's the first time they asked for input on how best to represent us as we were participating. I mean, how important is this to you? To you?
I think it's going to be our lifeblood. And I think one of the things that we have is a powerful tool we haven't used yet, is the good things that we are doing. Year and a half, 2 years ago, when the legislature started considering taking away municipal authority, I sent out 2 or 3 emails just to the different representatives. I got an answer back in 15 minutes. What was it, Bob Boucher? And he called me up And he said, why are you sending me this email? And I said, because I think you're all wrong. And then we had a discussion. He said, well, what I'm basing, I said, 3 weeks ago, I was at a meeting in Huntersville, and they spent 3 hours talking about what color yellow should go on a building. He said, that's ridiculous. And that's what made up his mind. So he made up his mind about Huntersville because they couldn't pick yellow. The representative that sponsored the annexation law was mad at a couple subdivisions, one or two of the county or cities or towns that had turned off the water and sewer to a couple subdivisions to force them to annex. The point is, there are a couple of things going on that are bad, but there are many more things that are going on that are really good, but the bad's getting the publicity. And I think we need to present the case of all the good things that are happening here, are happening in Weddington, are happening in Marshville, are happening all. Take a different approach. Say, look, if you want to manage by exception, look at these. You know, present our case. Positive side.
Just, Fred, I happen to agree with you, because just the couple hours last couple weeks I spent with Paul Martin, nobody knows what's going on in Waxhaw. You're not even on anybody's radar screen. That's how that's why he said, just start here and narrow it down. And we're just not on anybody's radar screen. From a need standpoint, from what's important standpoint. Some of that is history and inactivity, and they see that we haven't participated on the transportation and stuff like that. There's stuff in here on transportation and infrastructure that could generate some funds, or at least keep us from having to pay for things we don't need to.
Or keep them from taking things away that shouldn't be taken away. If we're doing responsibly.
I don't know if you want to comment about Union County Public Schools. I don't. We're trying to talk with them, but they're a
bunch.
They're a different bunch, a beast of their own color.
They were subject to conversation Monday and Tuesday of people from different counties and different parts of the state. I mean, how do you put up with them? That used to be, there were two people that said, 5 years ago, Union County was the model. What happened?
Well, getting us on the radar screen that Paul Meyer says, I mean, he's probably right, we're not. So do we start locally with engaging folks from Marvin, Weddington, Wesley Chapel? What are our common interests? What are our, transportation's got to be one of them. Where can we, bond together for more synergy and results out of the state, and then continue to have the negotiations at the county level with them to get plugged back in. That there was a county official that said he was relieved because now Waxhaw is now being viewed as he called us an island of sanity in Union County. So, and even that, in a positive way, moving forward.
Yeah.
So there's some momentum there. There's some positive, traction. How do we tap into that and push that forward? And then the metro area being plugged into the transportation conversation is going to be extremely important. So this stuff really isn't that complicated. We just have to take some steps and do some things to.
Yeah, and I have no reason why we shouldn't take his advice. Paul said, yes, we will do another one for 2017. He said, just start somewhere. The best place to start is start with this, and just as a board, come together and say, hey, of these 37, these 6 are the most critical to us. And he said, and then at least we can go forward as or us on Town Hall Day, but them when they're up there day in and day out, they're talking, they say, well, we know, for instance, Waxhaw and Western Union County, this is critical for them. This is how much And again, it's back to, we gotta give you direction, staff direction, because it's not just saying we want, it's, here's what donut holes are costing us. This is the, you know, the risk to Waxhaw, or whatever the issue might be on that stuff. John, you're awfully quiet.
Yeah, I'm just speaking.
What, do you have the numbers memorized, Jerry?
Yeah, working on it.
Paul?
I think we need to keep on track. I think trying to get the municipalities of Western Union County to have a one vision instead of having every municipality having a separate vision. Working with the county. We do need to take opportunities, I think, that we just let go by because Jim Warner and I went up to Town Hall Day last year. We had, I thought, low-hanging fruit because a senator said he would line up the DOT, all the rest of the municipalities, and start talking about our transportation needs because he understands that we have no voice with the CRPTO because we have one vote against the 46 in Charlotte. So he understands that he's mad because Union County really doesn't get any highlights like they should because we're growing so fast. We're growing as fast as Mecklenburg County, if not faster. And I thought we didn't take advantage of that.
Correct.
We need to work on that. We also need to, when we went up there to talk to the representatives at Town Hall Day, we really, Jim and I, we really got, when we started talking about annexation, we got our teeth kicked in. So it was like a dirty word. I mean, it was like,
That's past history is what they said.
yeah, it's past history. They don't want anything to do with it. Our representatives now, I mean, and they didn't even want to hear nothing about it. I mean, 2 out of 3 wouldn't even hear it. Craig Horn would be at least listen to us, but Brawley and
Brody and Horn and
Tommy Tucker. Tommy Tucker's actually wants municipalities to be broken up. Really, he says, if people want to opt out of the municipality, we should let them. Oh, come on. I mean, really.
Well, he's in your turf tonight. Go on over to City
You
Tavern and tell him
understand,
what you think.
He's the one that's driving that thing up at the state, that wants Wesley Chapel people to be able to opt out of Wesley Chapel.
Go
we
talk to him
heard
tonight.
his
He's a
story
city
though,
tenant.
there's a little more to that. And
I understand
I
there's a little
mean,
more to that.
they don't want to, Wesley Chapel doesn't want to let them have, communal spaces for
Well, that's
retirement.
because Wesley Chapel would have to put a new UDO in place, and they don't have the money to fund the UDO.
Because they don't
Is
charge
what
them
it
taxes
is.
to hire anybody to do what
Correct.
they should be doing.
And that's where the problem is. It's not really, it's not every municipality's problem. So
No.
I don't know of a lot of citizens that want to opt out of Waxhaw because they're pretty proud of being living
I don't know that anybody wants to opt out, but
But if you give them that opportunity
I
and
do
make
every
it
now and
easy,
then.
make it easy for them, instead of, paying 36 cents, you're down to 3 cents. Oh, okay. Or no cents, then you just pay your county tax, which is $1.
To me, just it becomes like irresponsibility of certain municipalities that penalized everybody else, just like
Correct.
Warren said.
It's just like the same thing when you said about the color up in Huntersville or whatever it was, the color of the paint. That's the same thing. They got too ridiculous. The same thing with the understanding of involuntary annexation. It was actually Charlotte and Pineville that were the battleground, and that's where it started.
and that, yeah.
And Wake County. Okay, that's where it started.
And that, you're right, and just, let's all remember that we're on camera. I think the advice from Paul Meyer, though, was different. He said, get specific. just like what Jim Prosser was saying yesterday. Don't take all 37 of these. What are the 4 or 5 things that we could focus on? Donut holes is one of them that is not, we can go with some hard, fast, factual numbers and say, this is what it's costing, this is what you're doing to us, Tommy. I wish we had the numbers tonight. We could go put them on placards and put them in front of City Tavern tonight for Tommy. I'm just, I wouldn't, but John would. We'd hire John.
Could I call that?
Yeah.
On Monday, I had a discussion with one of the state representatives from another county, I forget what it was, but I
Where did you run
realized,
into, man? Just out of curiosity.
I'm just out of the I mean, he just
Oh, okay.
sat at the same table, we got talking.
Gotcha.
But on the other hand, it really occurred to me that we're here talking to our representatives, our senator. We're just one. We need to basically barrage every representative in the entire House and Senate and say, we have a problem here. You all need to address this, not just take it to our one person. I mean,
Yeah, good point.
But it also it gets to the other locations around us, Mineral Springs, Wesley Chapel, Weddington, Moore. What are our common goals? And then going to them collectively saying, this is important to us. These are our priorities. You work for our people and for us, and we would like some help.
Yeah, and while it's not state related, a good example of that is Bonds Grove.
Yeah.
You and Dennis mentioned it to me. You're looking at it from the critical intersection for the county. I brought it up to their mayor. They're looking at it, their retreat. They don't want to do anything in advance of us in terms of let's make sure that that's a joint effort. And you're absolutely right. Each one of the municipalities is going through a retreat. I would say that right now the one that's in the most churn is Wesley Chapel. John, they're going to be calling you because they want to put in an ABC store, and I told them you're the expert on that. So, but they were appreciative of the fact that, hey, you've been through it. Tell us, maybe we can learn from you before we just go off and do it. Those are little baby step things, but nonetheless, it's partnering.
Well, Paul mentioned that we were supposed to have met with,
Craig.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the other jury, and we haven't. So we really do need to, if it's a joint meeting, I mean, y'all make the call on that, but I think we need to sit down and engage the folks around us.
I think the appetite to do that is there, and so I know we try to meet once a month. I'll bring it up to them and say, hey, we'll host it like we offered the last time. We said we'd host it, we never got it done.
A general question related to that, though, is do you view Waxhaw as a regional leader, or when I say regional, Western Union County? Do you want to be a regional leader in this negative, in that we're the Isle of Sanity in Union County now? Because that means.
Yeah, maybe leader's not the word to use because that'll frighten other people away. But are we the ones who are going to support collaboration, lead the collaboration in Union County? And we have to treat Mineral Springs, Wesley Chapel, Weddington, Marvin as equals. So,
Do
we
you
take
as far as
lead with
Indian
that?
Trail?
I say we should. We
Okay,
should.
how about Stallings?
Why not? We're there in Union County. I mean, we're a little crescent right around one road.
of our two closest neighbors, we're the only one with infrastructure with it. Stallings and Indian Trail, they have
Indian
infrastructure.
Trail,
Yeah.
Indian Trail's
Marvin.
3 times.
Yeah, we need
Wesley
that.
Chapel and
Almost 40,000.
Mineral Springs do not.
Yeah, I know, but if you have to treat each one of these.
So
that-
I look at it as Marvin and Weddington, we have some common problem. We have a common problem with them, transportation. Mineral Springs going up 75, we have a common problem with them, and they want to work with us on parks. I mean, I think we also have an opportunity to make it clear to them as well, our structure is different. I completely get that you want to stay at your 5-cent tax rate. If we, as one of the mayors said, I'm surprised you guys don't do more and demand more of us, because you offer everything free to us.
How does that look demanding them?
No, he basically said, you're offering stuff, you could ask us to do more. Not necessarily charge a fee or anything like that. What could we be doing for you? You don't ask for anything, haven't asked for anything in the past. The ask of Marvin, would you work with us on Bonds Grove and design that? Never been asked that before. Just, they thought that was great, you know? And maybe we start small and just figure out where we stumble. Probably one of those potholes that Dennis is gonna fix, but on the way out of town.
Yeah, I'm just worried about that as a commitment they have once they get into and realize it's gonna cost me something. I'm gonna have to go up another $2 on my tax.
Well, they have half the intersection whether they like it or not.
Yeah, I know.
So,
Whether they're, when it comes down to paying the check, will they write to sign it?
yeah, there's a shift over there in that they are looking at different types of commercial. And, you know, somebody mentioned the library earlier. We putzed around with that for 6-7 years. They got a proposal on the table. They want to do a library. They might beat us to the punch. Maybe that's the right thing. I don't know. But nonetheless, they got tired of waiting for us. I don't know, and no conversations were had. My point though is that they're looking at doing some different things to try to make their community a little bit. Some amenities are close by, let's put it that way. Then you got Suzanne Polito, found out that she's got a water plant right across, pump station. That went over real well.
But I must say, Marvin is halfway between Weddington and Waxhaw, which is where the feud was before.
Yeah.
So it might be a decent compromise on the library.
I mean, you support them on that, they'll support us on something else. Why not?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
So what would be the next steps? And you said you're gonna mention at the mayor's.
I'll mention to them and let's see what we can pull together. Next step on this, I'll get this out to everybody in soft copy. I just printed it off. And probably, if everybody's okay to it, just have a brief discussion at one of our meetings, kind of along the lines of what Jim Prosser was saying. Stay focused, get a couple and get it off our plate and move it forward. I do know the league is meeting today to try to figure out how to best attack some things, so as soon as I hear back from that, I'll holler. And we gotta wait for Cindy and Stoney.
Yeah.
And then Dennis is keeping all of us honest on the CRTPO.
And I'm new here and I'm not familiar with the way things, it seems like this reaching out to Union County and the school system, to others around us, is not something maybe historically that Waxhaw has done.
No.
I mean, I don't want
We were an island before.
Okay, so I guess, so generally speaking, there's a comfort level amongst the board that, yeah, we recognize that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but.
Are you okay with that?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that's a departure. When I got here 5.5 years ago, Waxhaw was not reaching out, they were throwing stones at Union County, throwing stones at the library system, throwing stones at, the school board. There was a fight. Facebook, papers, everything. Just, there was no cooperative effort whatsoever. And look where it got us. So if you want to reach out, we need to cooperate, let's cooperate.
Okay.
I mean, our state legislatures are allowed to listen to 4, 5, 6, 7 communities a lot faster than they do one.
So there's, so the bottom line is there's consensus that, yeah, that's how we want to do business.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I think you should reach out and go over that brochure you're gonna send to us, because I don't know if they have that information.
Yeah.
And maybe that would help them move along, and then ask them what their main priorities are in their municipalities. Is it transportation? Is it parks and rec? Is it garbage collection? Is it getting rid of nuisance cars? You know, I don't know what their priorities are. I mean, what do their vision of the district is? The whole area. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think we should try to bring in Indian Trail. I mean, Indian Trail's got 3 times the population we have. Now you're talking about 100,000 people or more. Now you got some eyes in the state. 100,000 people, 100,000 voters. You got something there. Maybe.
Yeah, and Paul, to your point, my sense in the reach outs to the county, most of the focus has been along 74. That's where they put their efforts.
Right.
And
And I don't think, you know, Indian Trail's a bigger community than us. But I see them having more stormwater problem and erosion problem than we ever thought we had. Just by driving back and forth to my daughter's house, she lives in Indian Trail. I mean, they have more flat land and not as much hills to let the water run off, so it pockets more, if you know what I'm saying. And they may need more, tell them what we're working on. That we're gonna be working on storm water program.
so there is consensus, we'll get it evolving so we can all participate. I have to admit, the first time I tried to reach out, it was, what do you want?
I got the same thing.
And now it's kind of like, oh, just want to talk, okay, well, yeah, it's starting to just slowly loosen up, but it was definitely, what do you want? And it's kind of sitting there just like you were forever, what do you want? And I'm picking on you, but that's exactly how it was.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right, so that's, we'll check that one, not check it off the list, we'll put that one on the list to
And
tackle.
thank you, Paul, for reminding us about
Yeah.
the one that we let fall off the list from last year.
We really, when an elected official like that makes a suggestion like that, we really need to follow through on that. That's
Yeah.
as much, I mean, we can still do that. He wanted to talk about the transportation issues, and that's where, you know, getting these others involved would be, they'd be hearing the same thing. Okay, you want to do anything else on the political side? I know. Just so we could go back, what I'd like to do, you know, we've been through a day and a half at least of a variety of different things, and review our vision, mission, values, and strategic initiatives. And one of the things that Jim said yesterday was, you gotta limit what you can tackle. He said 3 to 5 things, and those relate specifically to our strategic initiatives. But we need to do 2 things. We need to go through those, because those were adopted about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And based on what we know now, I mean, we have new board, you know, we got new mayor. All of these things do these things still reflect who we are, who we want to be, and how we want to operate? And that is in your packet somewhere. And I know that the mayor spent a lot of time originally putting these together. So if you wanted to run with kind of walking through these, then it's behind the board priorities tab in your packet.
Yeah, so to John's point yesterday, mission and vision kind of go hand in
Right.
hand. Vision's the what, mission's the how, but they have to work together. And really, I may have facilitated the dialogue, but it really was a work effort of the whole board, really working through the vision, the mission, and the values. I mean, that was close to a 6-week process. I think the other aspect that was very educational, at least to me as being a part of that group as we did it, was that we didn't know it at the time, but we actually did say, 3 of those strategic initiatives were givens, or those were the 3 that we had to get right. And then we'll try to get to the immediate opportunity. Even by putting the quality of life services down at the bottom as of the 3 to say, hey, that's gonna be the last one we get to. Because we felt the other 2 were a little bit more immediate than the last one, and then the mid to long-term opportunity. I think where my head went to when I looked at this in preparation for this, and knowing that, and seeing on the agenda, Warren was gonna say we were gonna have to reaffirm and tweak. What struck me, and then maybe we can all talk about it, the goals were really, as they came up, really getting us some foundation stuff in place. So and I think that for me, the goals probably need to get stronger. We really have to, I think I started alluding to it yesterday. Let's see if I can find it. Like, you know, in terms of financial performance, we're gonna have to start putting things around revenue sustainability. What does that really mean, and et cetera. So that's where I got to, where I'm fairly comfortable with the vision mission. I'm fairly comfortable. I'm very comfortable with the values. The strategic initiatives, specifically with the words, were designed to be 2 to 3 years. I'm okay with them, but our goals underneath them really need some work.
And I would make one recommendation in the format, changing the format.
Yep.
Is I think the financial performance needs to be a financial policy, and it really needs to be something, because it's a lot of this will transcend fiscal years, like your fund balance target, budgeting revenues, conservative. I mean, what all that means, but the way I have seen this most frequently is that you will have a financial policy that's specific and not necessarily a part of your strategic initiatives. But I'm open to. I mean, it works like it is.
Well, I think when we actually talked about it, we said, would you go in and look at it to try to figure out what, because we knew we didn't have policy.
Right.
And to the extent that we can get that, to get this off our plate and say, hey, we have to have a financial policy in place. Hey, my opinion, long overdue. I mean,
Are y'all comfortable?
I mean, does everybody agree we need to get this? Yes, we need strong financial performance, but we need a financial policy that we're all comfortable with, and that we understand how all this is gonna.
The answer is yes, and it speaks to Brenda's caution yesterday about what happens in 5 years, 10 years. and so
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
forth. The whole point.
Yeah, it just solidifies. Yeah, financially, this is what we're going to do. These are the board's policies. And this is how it's going to work. Yeah.
So that means that comes off as a
You kind of
goal.
take that off because it operates in a different. It's like the personnel policy. We don't have the personnel policy in here. We have some things related to personnel, and we may have some things related to finance, but we would have a specific finance policy, financial policy.
And would you anticipate that you could bring that forward with the budget?
Yes, and ideally before that, so we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that so?
Jim, what do you think? Does that make sense, or?
Yeah.
Brenda? Okay. John?
I'm good with it, yeah.
Paul? Okay.
Yeah, and I'll start working on that and getting some stuff out to you so you can take a look at it. Okay.
So what about the rest? What changes, what priorities, what?
Yeah, we're still hot and heavy on this operational excellence and particularly the infrastructure. I think, I mean, they're your initiatives, but I think as we tackle the givens, then we start really being able to get more serious about the economic development, community engagement. We've talked a lot about that, about the need to communicate what we're doing and keep a positive vibe in the community. It's not all negative, it's the overwhelming majority is positive. And I don't do a good job of that. I mean, I'll own that.
Well, we did make, remembering community engagement was tackle the boards and committees, which had been on the town board's agenda for 3 years. It was originally in the 2012 thing that you were referencing, Warren. Legislative priorities are in that as well, but I mean, where my head, I'm very comfortable with operational excellence and the core infrastructure being our two focus items. I get the sense that we can't do the we can do the retail, but the real economic development, the technology businesses, we need to get our infrastructure and services stuff aligned before we can get some of these, go after the heavy hitters there.
If I were, I mean, again, this is but if I were picking four, if we take the financial policies and make those, or make the financial performance a policy, operational excellence, consistent core infrastructure and services is yes. This whole community building and engagement, I think that's something we're going to have to start doing. And then the last thing that we had talked about here were these strategic partnerships. If I were going to focus on four things, it would be those four, and I'd leave economic development off and implementing quality of life services, or try to weave elements of those things into something else. Does that make sense? I don't know.
So put it down to mid, not drop them, but put them down to low and move the partnerships up.
I really think we have such a tremendous story to tell. We should be bragging in the community every day about how great Waxhaw is and all the wonderful things that were going on. And I don't do that. I mean, I brag about Waxhaw, but I don't do it as much as I need to because I'm focused on so many other things. But
what's everybody else think?
One of the first things I think, having been through this day and a half or 2 days, quite a lot of these have been touched on. And some of them have, there's a direction to move on the goals. And I think that if they could be updated just to show that they're underway. So they're not a goal that's sitting out there, but there's a goal that's now being worked on, and probably within a month or so, you might even have some dates when they're going to be done. They won't be done in a month, but you'll have a plan in place, to be doing some of these things.
So,
Specifically, I mean.
But just carry it a step further. So, from a budget alignment process, what did you think of his comment around, the operational excellence and the infrastructure, the givens? I mean, those are the highest priority. And then the immediate becomes community building and engagement and develop productive public and private partnerships, and the other two go to medium to, because they're already underway. I mean,
yeah,
public-private partnerships is almost nice. It's almost a given now.
yeah,
So I mean,
yeah.
we are really entrenched real well with the museum in Waxhaw. I feel really confident. How do you feel, Natalie? I think they're really want to work with us. I mean, they were asking for more than we were, which was very surprising that they wanted to be included. And there's a lot of people that want to be included in a private partnership.
yeah.
We have
So,
the YMCA's and
The
other
YMCA, I mean, we're going to have,
It's a way of life.
Yeah.
it's a way of life, and it's the new way of going. And it gets them more comfortable too, so that they can count on certain things that we have in documentation. Right now, it won't be a binding thing, but it would be we're looking into it, just like we started the YMCA. But they know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that makes them feel better. And what we've been talking to them, instead of, once we get this agreement done, then it would be a line item on our budget for what we give them a year, rather than come in and ask, because we're giving it to them every year anyways. Just the truth of it. I mean, if you look at the past history, I'm sorry, I'm probably stealing some of your thunder for the next meeting, but we have traditionally, I think the last 12 years,
so far we've gone back to 2004 and every single year
we funded something to the museum. And I would like them to have, them being a 501c3, that have the comfortability of something they can count on, because it could change as the members change on this board, their opinion. You know what I mean? I think we need to make sure they're an asset to the town, and I want them to be looked at that way.
Okay.
So I think a common theme I've been hearing throughout the retreat is limit what we're focused on. I mean, we don't want, as an example, Jim brought it up yesterday, but then today we heard, no, let's not tackle greenways yet. Let's get some wins,
Right.
let's get some dirt churning so folks can see some of the progress that we're making. So along those lines, I guess we continue to focus on the operational excellence and the infrastructure. Those are two big priorities for the coming year, correct? And the community building and engagement, that
Yeah, the only thing that I was wondering about the quality of life services is, should we move safety up to the operational excellence? That's, I mean, what the chief does, what the police does, that's a given.
yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Did you get that, Natalie? I mean,
Yeah.
Melody, the other Natalie.
Move police for safety into operational excellence.
then we can hold chief accountable now.
He didn't fall off the rail.
I don't have trouble with that.
As far as the values,
You're just not looking forward to this retreat, aren't you? You just,
Usually you have to watch over
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, you did spend a lot of time on these last year putting this together, and I mean, I guess what jumps out at anybody as far as your vision, mission, values, or any of the strategic initiatives that aren't on there that we need
Yeah.
to add? What doesn't align with where you are?
I think in the last strategic initiative of developing productive and strategic partnerships, we've probably gone beyond some of the goals already.
Yeah.
You know, so our goals, we've already exceeded them. And, we were at town hall day last year, we're going to go this year. We're already having meetings with the mayors from local areas and coming back with information, and they're getting information from us. And, maybe now once that's going, we turn our turrets.
Well, does that turn into a value? Partnerships?
Yeah,
Because we have teamwork, but teamwork's a little bit different than partnerships.
I think so.
Well, if you look at the goals, we're kind of saying, is anybody interested in us on those? And so they're now talking to us.
Mhm.
So now it's a given. It would be great, kind of like what we did with the financial, to use this year to get it to where it becomes either a value or a way of life, but put some tougher goals so it's in to Paul's point, it's a way of life. So let's make it, work it this year hard to make it something that we can put in as a value or whatever.
So leave it in as a strategic initiative for the coming year, but,
Elevate it like you said.
yeah, but with the goal that we work it into that's the way we do business, that's a value.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a good point. Because I'm looking at it, hold a meeting. Okay, we did that.
Yeah.
Ching. Okay.
Well, what we will do, the way we did this last year, so staff will, we'll take your vision, mission, values. That's the way that's what we're aspiring to, that's the way we do business. We'll sit down and go over your strategic initiatives at a broad level. We will create new goals and specific objectives related to each one of those for you all to come back and review and approve or disapprove or change or whatnot. Is that?
Yeah, and I think, given some of what was said yesterday, it'd be nice to be able to take a couple weeks to digest it and then
Okay.
circle back at the next meeting maybe and kind of say, here's what we heard, is this, 'cause I think Melody's captured some things, maybe we could digest it, because let's face it, yesterday Dennis threw a lot at us. And then, and that impacts a couple of these in here.
Yeah, it impacts a lot. Because I go back to, I said this yesterday, and this, I cannot understand, if we don't get that right, and we will, but if we were not to get that right, nothing else would matter, truthfully. That's how important that is, and that is why we will get that right.
Does that sound reasonable?
All right.
But can we get it out, so, somewhat of an update and give everybody a week to kind of look at it and just kind of
Okay.
digest it and play with it a little bit. So it's not just overnight kind of thing.
I know this is, I guess, maybe a little different than the way we've done, but what your honest feedback, what the last 2 days, because in the spirit of continually improving, trying to do something a little bit better each time, what's your honest analysis of, number one, I guess, how the 2 days were structured, and secondly, the results of what came out. I know we're probably obviously going to end early today. Yeah. So just having this kind of conversation like this, and we're asking point blank questions and getting point blank, and that's the way if I don't get solid direction, then I'm just going to flounder. I mean, so that was the essence of what I wanted to come out with.
From my point, having been only a short time on the Board of Commissioners, but a long time sort of activist in Waxhaw, it's probably one of the most important things that's happened here. And it's important on many levels. One is, everybody here in the room is civil, productive, intelligent, and, motivated. And quite frankly, what you all brought to us is the form of issues or problems or opportunities, however you want to call them. If you don't focus on all those and begin to have, as Mr. Prosser said, okay, there they are. Now, what are you going to do about them? Which ones do you take first? And not having been on the inside, I don't know what the prior board, discussed or how they're discussing that. This is a great step forward. Things are getting done, and now they'll probably get done at a faster rate. Maybe it should be the next time we do this in 6 months or something. Whatever we feel.
So give me something to improve upon for the next time.
I think we did very well this time. I wouldn't try to change the format at this point. I would be a little presumptive on my part at this point to say that. I think if we do what we did again, at that point we might come up with some streamlining. But right now, this was very good.
I think it was very helpful to have a practitioner, Jim Prosser, walk us through some things. It would be great, it wasn't right for this one, but it would be great if we're gonna do something that is non-trivial, like the balanced decision process. Boy, wouldn't it be great to take one of our sticky widgets and kind of, how do we structure this, Jim? How do we work this? How do we, what do you got? Even if we had the, even though I had a little bit of fun with it, like he tried to role play a little bit with, and historic preservation, and threw it at him. It's kind of like, what that led to though was a discussion of, by and large, we reached consensus that in the grand scheme of things, that's low on our priority list compared to everything else that's going on here, and not a lot to deal with that. I mean, it led to a good discussion. It's not dismissing anybody that feels one way or the other on it, just look at everything else up here, you know, and look at how much we spent on it already, and all that was, that practical application is something that I think is good.
I'm with you. I would have liked to have seen, if we didn't have time, but running one of our issues through the balanced decision-making
And
process.
maybe we can do,
Yeah,
I mean,
we
he
can-
offered
we
to
can
come back.
yeah.
Maybe we do one interim to a,
I don't think we've done that.
we couldn't have
We've done
yesterday.
that yesterday or today.
But doing that a couple of times, you'd get the feel for, okay, this is how this works.
Yeah.
Right.
Next.
I think what I had thought was the best was to actually get in an tour bus and go around the town and actually see real examples of real life things that are going on that we had those blinders on, like I said. We don't look at them. We didn't look at the details. And that's, like Jim says, it's all in the details. It's that 10%. And I think was key to myself. That I knew that there was narrow streets, and I knew that there was trees in the planting areas, but I didn't realize the type of trees they were.
And the
I saw
magnitude.
them. I saw them, I drove past them, I knew they were willow oaks, but I didn't register in my mind that that's gonna just pop everything, because I knew that that's what they do, but I just didn't realize it. And I knew the extent that we have of separated pipes and so forth in town. That map of the blue lines, I didn't know it was that extensive, to be truthful. That probably half to 3/4 of the roads we think they're in the town, they're not in the town. So we got a lot of roads to take on, and then opportunities or responsibilities of maintaining those roads. I would like to see more of a team building like we had last year, at least maybe a half a day of a team building. Because we are not all the same individuals. I'm not the same as I was last year. And everybody changes over every year, so I think that would have been helpful. But other than that, it was a great retreat.
That's it?
Okay, next.
All right, we're done.
I guess I'm the one that's being stared at.
A sign like that?
That's just, I can say that these esoteric things, I'm not too much into field things here and there. I mean, mechanics, yeah, I'm a mechanic. And I can see that things have been talked about since I was elected a little over 2 years ago are finally there. I mean, we got them on our sites, we're heading down the road. The other thing is, I was in the planning board back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I know we instituted a lot of these things. People wanted street trees. People still want street trees. I did not know that it was not working. I mean, I didn't know that we had a major problem until really now. And things that we, in our head, think are great, they just don't work, I mean, in reality. Because in reality, let's change the rules. And when the things come before our board, and we kind of a rezoning, et cetera, the planning department needs to get our direction. They need to know that, tell us if there's a mess up, we'll change the rules. I think what Jim talked about yesterday morning, that was excellent. Yeah, I mean, let's not waste our time. That's the biggest thing. We can waste a lot of time if we don't decidedly decide it. We're going to do it this way. Then the other thing is the resources. We need to prioritize because we have limited resources. $10 million is our budget. Board will only be $12 million next year, but we have to spend it right. Otherwise, I put it at a 9.7.
I enjoyed it. Being my first time, I thought it was great. I enjoyed Jim's presentation yesterday. I learned a lot from him. I'm gonna call him on some other things. He asked me to. He said, if you have any questions, call me. So I'm gonna call him because I have a bunch of questions. But, and then finally getting to your, like Jim said, your priorities, and finally getting to a point where we choose something to work on and get it done. Get one of our goals finished, and then go on to the next one, and the next one.
So what would you improve or change or do differently, or? You're not gonna hurt my feelings. I'm all about getting better or trying to every time, so.
What do you think on that one?
Okay.
I'll email you.
Okay, all right.
More Diet Coke.
Yeah.
More Diet Coke.
Yeah. Oh, you got a partner over there.
Yes.
Two.
2 partners.
Yeah, very good. I mean, it brought out what we needed to talk about. It was well laid out, and we definitely need to do more of them. So, just to kind of baseline and go from there.
Staff.
I liked it. I've been here 14 years and I've seen nothing like this before. Ever. I mean, they talk, but we've never been involved with it.
And I think the unity between the department heads and the commissioners, mayor, has been very, very productive in that when you had questions, you had the answers to keep moving forward.
I like the way it's open. Everybody's feelings gets hurt. You say if they like it, they like it. They don't, they don't.
What feelings?
Yeah, one thing we've referenced a lot, I think over the past 2 days, are kind of what are other municipalities doing. I think moving forward, it'd be helpful to have the physical examples that show what those other municipalities are doing. So, for example, there are organizations that have done pretty high-level vision statements. They have some goals that they put down on paper and are available just to kind of give everybody a feel for what's out there so that we're not trying to maybe imagine what's happening with other communities, but we can physically see what some of this looks like. I think what we'll find out is that a lot of communities have very similar goals, cities and towns at least, and they may package them a little different, but I think a lot of the goals are very, very similar when you start to kind of put them on paper or put them in a presentation from that.
That's a great idea. I think another out-of-town field trip at some point's in our future to go visit a couple of places and get because a lot of folks have been through the same thing we're going through, and they bumps in the road, and they can share what they did right and what they did wrong.
That actually was John's suggestion at the start.
Okay.
And just like, hey, let's go to another place and see
Well, how they do it.
how they do it.
One other, this is an accomplishment by this group. This is a report from the gentleman who's running the SPCC program here at St. Matthew. What they've done, what they plan to do, and it's just, we can all be a little bit proud of it, because it started off slowly, but it's been very successful. And at the end of it, he wants to make sure that SPCEC, like we, has a closer partnership in helping the community.
Natalie, Wendy? Chief?
I'm grateful to be here. I've looked at it as a professional development opportunity for us as employees, because I've personally learned a lot through the last 2 days. And I think it's good as department heads to get that bigger picture, so we see how everything fits together, so we can be better resources for you as our leaders. And I'm grateful for the dialogue and the opportunity to chime in, and so thank you very much.
Yeah, ditto to what Natalie said, because I've said, I have not made a secret the past couple of days that I've enjoyed it, and I think it's been very helpful, and I too look at it as professional development. That's what it feels like, that's what, yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey Natalie, ain't you working with, Stallin's Parks and Rec people?
Yep.
And some, Indian Trail?
Yes,
I thought
Parks
we
and
had
Rec
that.
is really collaborative in the county. The municipalities got together on a quarterly basis for quite a while. That paused when the Union County Parks and Rec director retired, and now that's resumed under Jeff Clayton, who's the Community Services Executive Director over there. And so as a result, Stallings in particular, we have been able to support each other and share resources. So we've done a hand receipt thing where they borrowed a light tower. We borrowed a sound system from them. And we didn't have to make those purchases. We got those approved through our respective channels, took responsibility, but did some cost saving. Also, we do a lot of bouncing ideas and sharing information. So it's really strong among staff members. That's one suggestion I was going to say. In each of our functional areas, on top of what our elected officials are going to do to reach out, I would encourage everybody to do that in their particular area of expertise, because it's incredibly invaluable. Also, just the work that I have a relationship with Charlotte Parks and Rec, or Mecklenburg County Parks and Rec, and some of the nice resources they've offered us are going to help us get ahead faster than we would have been able to do. So.
I believe that this has been the best so far, and that it's just going to get better. It's been very specific, and we've moved right along, and it's been, we've learned a lot, so I think it was good.
Kudos to the new town manager
I'm not new anymore.
for setting that. Well, you just referred to yourself as new, and I was going to say that too, and I changed my mind.
That was a slip of the tongue. I can't claim that anymore.
That's
I'm
right.
an old timer now. No Waxhaw standard.
But the endeavor was good.
Mayor, Chief?
Yep.
I think it's definitely the best retreat that I've been to since I've been here. I'm looking forward to building on it and making progress. I think we've got good things to come.
So I know in the not too distant future, since we got the drought, we're going to be reviewing the comprehensive plan with an eye towards land use. I may be a minority of one, but I'm not sure I know how to relate land use to our vision and make sure it aligns. And I have ideas, but I think maybe some help from Warren, from staff, from Dennis, to kind of guide us in that discussion. How does that land, what's in that document really map to our vision, so we can see it a little bit more clearly? Because in Brendan and Fred's case, the vision's relatively new to them, and we're still trying to process it. We're still trying to decide if we're going to adjust anything in here, but yet, not that we're going to adjust much there, but bringing it alive to the vision, or guiding us as to, hey, maybe this is a way to look at it, or that, as we're reviewing it, is just a thought. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but it's just a thought, because if that's going to be who we are and what drives everything we do, and we're going to be thumbs up, thumbs down, and within 30 days, boy, a study guide or professor guide,
Okay?
or the quiz and the answers.
Well, so,
No.
yeah, I mean, I don't wanna, I don't wanna overcomplicate it, but, at a high level, your comp plan theoretically is the community's vision,
Right.
okay? And so, when you're saying, how does the comp plan relate to the vision? Are you?
At a high level, I'm talking about one of the main thing, the land use. Is that going to help us, is it aligned to help us achieve that vision, through that mission, through those initiatives,
Yeah.
or do you see, how do we look for things that are just totally
Yeah,
land use versus,
what I would recommend is that we maybe have a specific, maybe workshop dedicated to that
Great.
particular topic.
okay,
And this will be actually the first time that you'll be talking about the comp plan and with a person in this role at this stage.
yeah,
And so I think it's pretty important that we have that conversation, because on a parallel path, as we all know, the UDO is going on. And so if there are questions about vision and direction from a comp plan perspective, we want to get that sorted out pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
that's kind of what's getting, yeah, okay.
Just to that point, when you talk about vision in the comp plan, there's vision on different levels.
Right.
And this is a philosophic vision. There's also a vision of where the roads are gonna go. And they're very different, but they have to align. And that's probably sort of where the roads are gonna go is kind of missing from the comp plan right now.
Yeah, if the roads lead to hell and this vision leads to heaven, I want to know that now
We're on
before
two
we,
different roads.
yeah, that's, be able to resolve that. So anyway, anybody else?
Thank y'all.
Boo?
I appreciate
Yeah.
you 2 days.
Thank you very much.
Oh, now go sleep.
Chocolate.
This one's as boring as the 2 days in a row.
Put the goals behind to get to that next stage. That's what's been missing.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know,
And I'm happy to do it.